All right. Gonna wait for a few people here. Let's see here. All right. I'm just typing a quick message to say, let me know if you can hear and see me. I'm hoping this is better from a couple days ago. I had some technical difficulty, so I'll just wait for a minute or two to see who all's going to join us. But this will be the talk on cooperative care, meaning a little bit more choice and versus have to, like at the vet office and things like that. So if you could just comment if you can see and hear me, that would be great. Just type in a quick comment for me, and that way we can go forward. Otherwise, I'll give it just a minute or two, and then we'll go from there. All right. Let's see here. All right, looks like I have a few people in the room. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm just trying to check the comments. If you can type in if you can hear me. Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Let's see. Okay, looks like somebody at least responded, which is good. Thank you for that. I want to welcome everybody. I'll go ahead and kind of get started. The talk I'm doing today is on cooperative care. A little bit about me. I am a licensed veterinary technician. Perfect. Hi, Jesse. Thanks for answering me. I am a licensed veterinary technician here in Illinois, in Wisconsin. I'm licensed, transferring to Illinois in the States here. So I'm very familiar with cooperative care. I've been establishing programs for a lot of veterinary clinics, and I'm not only the technician side of things, but I do behavior modification, I do training. I'm certified in different areas of fear-free and force-free, modification as well. But basically, I have a 21 years experience in the animal care field in many different aspects. So hopefully I can bring some good tips and tricks to the cooperative care aspect of things today. I have a little bit of an outline, but I would love to also kind of talk to everybody as you join me. Do you have any specific questions? So if you want to type in any specific questions that you're having or difficulties that you're having with your dogs, then I can answer them kind of as we go or answer them at the end. And then as always, as I try to tell people, you can always contact me afterwards. Feel free to friend me or follow my page, Trekking Dog Trainer, on Facebook. So we can definitely talk more on a personal note as well. But basically for cooperative care, generally speaking, we always want to talk about prevention and setting them up for success, and then being able to move forward with their programs so that if you have an extremely aggressive dog or a reactive dog or an anxious dog, we can kind of help them hopefully keep below threshold. To help everybody, I did post on the event page some videos and just a couple little references so that as we go through things, or if you want to have like a goal reference, I do have some videos of like what I've done for some of the cooperative care dogs, just so that we can set them up for success again and hopefully have that end goal of them not worrying about the vet office or being reactive or bitey and aggressive and things like that. So for a very basic, simplistic outline, if you will, the setup for success for me is, what does your dog already know? We know that when we go to the vet's office, most of the time dogs go to the vet office, it's bad, right? So it's like they put a thermometer up my butt, they stick me in the back with a needle, they put a needle in my leg and draw blood, or in my neck and draw blood. So a lot of times these dogs are being set up kind of almost for failure in a way, because they only go in when they're sick or when they're injured or when they need stuff. And so my biggest thing that I like to recommend is start changing that emotional state by bringing them in for more cookie visits. with COVID and the pandemic, it's definitely harder. So even if you go outside the vet practice and start doing fun things like scatter feeding, bring a snuffle mat, bring your high value toys, your high value treats, things that they don't normally even get at home. That's definitely something that I would recommend. So to kind of just very briefly go over like the outline, basket muzzle training is going to be talked about a little bit more. We want to do even like Elizabethan cone collar, like those plastic collars. We don't think of these things to set our dogs up for success, but sometimes dogs need muzzles. If they get injured and they're hurting, we don't want them hurting the staff. We don't want them hurting somebody else or even you. So train them, if we start to train them and teach them how to accept these things in a very fear-free and a positive manner, then they shove their nose right into a muzzle and they don't have to worry about it. So, and like the big plastic cone collars, hopefully your dog, knock on wood, your pet will never need them. But what if they do? A lot of dogs, flip out. They paw at their face. They can't get to them. So I recommend buying one from a store and actually practicing with it, like smear some cream cheese on it, help them out. So we're going to discuss that a little bit too. But also, I want to talk a little bit about PVPs. PVPs are pre-visit pharmaceuticals. If you have an extremely aggressive or an extremely anxious dog, then that is something that we definitely want to talk about. And we want to talk to your vet about. So your vet can recommend and prescribe different medications to really bring them to below threshold, make this visit much more successful, including sometimes cookie visits. I've worked with some pretty extreme dogs, and I've worked with dogs with just mild, low-level things where, it might only take a few cookie visits, but then I've worked with dogs that were like flat out needing to be sedated before they could even be touched, and now they don't have to have that sedation. So, our end goal is to make it the most comfortable, to have that cooperative type care. And then being able to actually not only set up for success, do these cookie visits, get all these things in place, but then doing your actual visits, being able to have your dog. Again, one of my videos is my own dog who jumps up on a bench and is getting a blood draw from me. I laughingly say the staff always just puts me to work because it's my dog and I can do that. Again, being a technician, but having the dog actually give consent, jump up and say, here, take my leg, draw my blood, still eat cookies the whole time, be perfectly comfortable being stabbed, if you will. But then being able to just go about her day and say, that was not such a big deal. And, we got done what we needed to get done. So if we set them up for some of the husbandry things, so what we call husbandry, that's the other kind of part of this I want to talk about today. So again, an ounce of prevention, kind of worth a pound of cure is kind of that phrase. We definitely want to prevent things. We want to teach them this other emotional side of things. We want to teach them how to be able to be handled, what to actually expect, because a lot of dogs go in the first time and they're like, hey, that's really cool. Everything gets done and they're like, I don't know if that was so cool. And then the second time they go in, I don't know, what are you going to do? But it's still kind of cool. And then we usually find when puppies get into adolescent and adult stages, we actually find that a lot of times they don't start liking the vet, or we go, oh, he used to like the vet all the time, and now he's aggressive. It's because they've kind of been building up these visits of it's not good. So let's make each visit good. Let's do some visits in between that are awesome, build up some tolerance, talk about some husbandry and kind of get like that whole game plan started. So, again, now that we're kind of a few minutes into it, again, welcome to everybody who's here. Going into cooperative care, is there any questions right off the bat? Does anybody have questions that they, their own dog, they need to have addressed right away? Because otherwise I'll kind of talk about how I do things. I think there's a delay, so I'll wait about 30 seconds real quick to see. Any questions, just type them on in and I can answer them as we go. Just bringing up my notes here, but so otherwise, okay, so far so good. So basically, when I do cooperative care visits, I'll use a case example for instance. So one dog that I worked exceptionally hard with, and we got her to the point where she previously needed to be sedated for everything. A little background history: she was a 12-week-old Rottweiler who went in for a normal vet visit at 8 weeks of age, no problem. But at 12 weeks of age, they wanted to do a nail trim. And apparently she had to be held down by numerous people. Unfortunately was so upset and panicky that she released her anal glands, she did urination, she defecated, just a major panic situation for a nail trim. And then the next visit, she didn't need her nails done, but she went to get vaccinated, and kind of these similar things started happening where she would growl, snarl, and she started to air snap, started to bite, and would need to be muzzled. And we're talking a young dog who just learned very quickly this is not cool, and a dog that then also gets to be very powerful. We have a breed of Rottweiler, they get to be strong and powerful, and I mean, mean, the breed itself, there's nothing wrong with the breed. I love them, but they get to be strong and powerful. And then people start to go, oh my gosh, it's a Rottweiler who's going to bite me. It got so bad that the couple of years I didn't actually get involved with them for a couple of years, but I guess it got pretty bad that they had to sedate her every time they touched her. She definitely had to be muzzled. Some of those things that we talk about as we go, I'll kind of use that with her as the example, but she wound up needing to be sedated the entire time. They couldn't even touch her. So they would send home medication. They'd bring her in, they'd in a way kind of manhandle her, pin her down, try to just do a quick needle and then sedate her so that she was completely out of it to be handled. When we have to do those things, I work in general practice and emergency medicine. There are times we have to do something and we have to do it fast. Those are not the times to teach, of course. Those are the times that it's an emergent situation. But things like nail trims or vaccines even really aren't emergent situations for the most part. We want to plan ahead. We want to set them up for success. But sometimes we do need to sedate and things like that. But if we don't, jump to that right away, that's my goal. So when they decided to actually start a family, this was when this kind of came into play, is that the veterinarian recommended euthanasia because they said this dog would never be safe. This dog was very highly aggressive, needed to be sedated, and they recommended actually euthanizing this dog before they started a family so that this wouldn't be a dangerous dog. They love this dog as their own. They asked, if there were other options for this. And so when we talk about cooperative care, this dog was actually only what we call a little bit more situationally aggressive. She was a great family dog, and she was very situationally aggressive at the vet. So cooperative care at the vet was basically her critical program. And when I entered the house, when I just went in to go do a starter lesson to kind of assess this dog, to see if this was something that they could, manage and treat and do a family with, or if it was something that we really needed to consider other options for, this dog was super friendly, jumping, licking, no problem, like very much I'm like, what's wrong with this dog? It's one of those cases that I love to go into, basically. And so we talked about a program. We got her started on some basic impulse control exercises. And what I mean by that are some of the basic cues that I like to teach that I think flat out need to be taught are basically come touch. So recall and being able to even get them to do their nose and come touch. So those are some basic obedience things, but also to do like a place and a settle so that they have an area that they can go to and settle. And also to be able to have a flat and a stand, because flat to me is when they lay on their side completely, but they're under their own control, but they choose to lay on their side. And then if they lay on their side and they learn to just lay on their side flat, I've worked with wolf hybrid dogs on this. I've worked on huge Alaskan Malamutes on this that were extremely aggressive, but we teach them to lay on their side, that they are in control, but they're laying on their side. We usually can get access to just about anything we need. We can make it safe for the staff. We can have precautions like muzzling in place, but that's a very, very nice impulse control, basic cue and exercise to teach a dog. So I recommend teaching a basic flat and then also just how to stand. If they just stand, they don't have to sit, they don't have to down, but if they can learn how to stand still, I can start lifting their paws and doing their legs and doing everything that I need to do. If I need to do a blood draw, if they need to do an exam, it's just that basic starter thing. So those are the actual things that I want to teach a dog when I do cooperative care. So those are some of the first things we focus on. Thank you, Christine. I can see and hear you. Perfect. Thank you for telling me. I just want to make sure I'm not talking to myself. It's fine if I do. I'll talk and answer myself too. But thank you for that. So basically, again, doing a place or a go to bed or a place, that's super awesome. Having to teach them settle so that they know how to just settle. And that could be just to relax. So relax, chill, settle, whatever cue you want to use. But teaching them to just go to a place and lay down and just relax for a few, so I can talk to the vet, or, you can have a conversation where they're not just like on edge and focused on the vet coming in. You can tell them to go settle and have them be able to just be relaxed about things. And then when we go to do the husbandry aspect and the exam aspect, then we can get them into a stand or a flat so that we can actually do the full exam, draw the blood, do what we need to do. So going back to this case, so we actually started to do some basic impulse control with this particular dog, and working along the way with this particular dog, I went into the vet with them and definitely saw this dog change, right? This situational kind of like, oh gosh, what's going to happen? What are they going to do to me? Are they going to manhandle me? Are they going to pin me to the ground? Do I have to defend myself, basically? So when we see a lot of dogs go into a veterinary office, we get a little bit more of that defensive, like what are they going to do to me? What do I have to defend myself against? I want them to walk into a vet office and go, hey, you got cookies? You got something to go on? What do you want me to do? You want me to sit? You want me to down? You want me to lay on my side? Can we get this over as quick as possible so that I can go back to playing? And in some of the videos that I posted as references, you can see that. I want to play. I want to have an open, emotionally open dog, because not only just those basic cues, I want to change things with cookie visits and get that emotionally open dog. So I kind of saw this dog change and I went, we definitely need to do more cookie visits. So we did. We started to do cookie visits. We started to change the emotional state where this dog would go in and go on the scale and get chicken by just running to the scale and, getting weighed. So we weighing on a weekly basis or every other week, whatever you can do to create an emotional response to this environment. So there wasn't anything required. We don't go in and require our places and our stays and our settles. We can require a few things like, maybe touch for a piece of food. But you want to get some of those basic cues in place at home, and then also start to change the emotional state of the environment. So when I do cookie visits to make them most effective, a lot of times I'll just go in. So a cookie visit to me, let me backtrack just a minute, but a cookie visit is actually bringing high value food rewards, because if your dog is that stressed, they're not going to want to play and they're not going to want to eat. So that'll tell you right there how stressed out they are and if you're capable of working with them to teach them, or if we need to actually increase distance. I'm always saying distance is our friend. So we increase distance to the fact that they can start playing or they can start eating again. And that might mean you don't go in the vet office right away. It means you might be in the parking lot. It might mean you might be in the store next door, like outside in the parking lot of the store next door. Whatever they need to be kind of in the vicinity, but be able to eat or play and do those things. That's kind of what I'm talking about with a cookie visit to change the emotional state of the dog. So when we want to change the emotional state, high value food rewards, chicken, string cheese, turkey, basically proteins, whatever the dog really likes. If they really like carrots or dehydrated banana chips, whatever the dog really likes. And like, it's a magnet. They're like, whoa, I never get that at home. This is amazing. That's kind of what I want to pair with that environment. I also bring high value toys. So not the toys that are out and about in the house, not even the ones that I rotate a little bit. I bring super high squeaky toys. I'll bring a flirt pole. I can post a video. Actually, I forgot to do that one, but I can post a video of a flirt pole later on, because being able to play with them and get them to play, if they're playing, they're not stressed out. So again, we're kind of creating that emotional attachment of like, hey, this is okay to do. It's okay to be here and have fun. I want them to walk into a vet office like they walk into a pet store or into a doggy daycare that they love or into a dog park that they love. We won't go into the details of all those things because there's some controversy there, but anywhere they love to go, that's what I want. Going to grandma's house. Grandma's house is great because I always get cookies. Great. I want them to walk into the vet office like that. So I need to help them get to that point so that they're emotionally just like, this is going to be okay. I can tolerate some of this kind of weird stuff that happens because humans are strange. They take thermometers and put them up my butt. They stab me in the back with these vaccines. They draw blood from my legs. They hold me. They have to hold me a little bit more so I don't move. They don't know all these things. So we want to create emotional attachment for those things that are positive things. And so those cookie visits are just changing the emotional association right away with that, and not requiring any obedience, not requiring any husbandry, not requiring anything that's going to be like a vet visit. A cookie visit to me is just fun. It's rewarding. It's play. It's treats from the staff. If you do get in the building, those cookie visits can progress to, you get in the building, you hand the staff tons of chicken, and they toss chicken at your dog. They don't hand it to them. I actually rarely even start with people handing stuff to my dog, because if there's any weird attachment of like, oh, your hand's coming to me, especially with an aggressive dog, then you are giving a reason to bite, for the dog to be so close to this hand that they might make a mistake. And I don't want them making mistakes. I want them being comfortable. So that means the person behind the reception desk, I might hand chicken and just say, can you just, toss it? Chicken rains from the sky from the receptionist if they walk in this door. That is like the coolest thing that most of the dogs can be like, whoa, this is awesome. Changing that emotional state. So that's what I'm talking about by cookie visits. We go and we change the emotional state by playing, by having treats rain from the sky from staff members, by making sure that that dog is having fun and thinking of it as differently than, oh my gosh, something bad's going to happen. So we do cookie visits while we're doing our basic cues. I'm not going to go into the associations. I figure most people know it, but even if you're a dog owner who doesn't know how to do it, you can join a class. We can talk to professional trainers. I'm happy to help, consult, but your basic touch, your basic settle, and go to your bed or place. That way we can have that. Being able to teach a flat and stand so that we can do a mock exam. All of those are the cues that I would work with while I'm also doing cookie visits. Now, with the cookie visits, you can also do a couple of things like with snuffle mats. So I did post a link for my snuffle mat page, so you can kind of see videos on how that works, but also scatter feeding. Sometimes it's really easy to just go outside the vet office and do some scatter feeding. So if they're around breakfast or dinner time and they're hungry anyway, and especially if we get that emotional state to start changing, let's go do some scatter feeding. Let's bring some high value chicken and do some scatter feeding. If you need more information on that, I'm happy to talk with you about that. But scatter feeding, snuffle mats, doing some nose work basically gets them to think about other things, because now they have to find food. And, maybe it could be a stuffed Kong, bringing a stuffed Kong with you that has some frozen cream cheese or some peanut butter or whatever, that's super high value stuff that they don't get. Suddenly that stuffed Kong is, outside the vet office on their blanket where they're placing, and it's not so bad. We can hang out for a few minutes and then I'll take it away. Let's go for a little mini walk to the car, couple of minutes, and then we'll go back and we'll do it again. So when I do cookie visits to make them most effective, I will go in for a minute or two and I'll come back out. And we'll go to the car, we'll go for a little mini walk to go smell, do what I call a snuffari. I love snuffaris. Let's go check out all this information, half a block away, but then, or whatever, quarter block, a couple parking spaces, doesn't have to be far. But then we come back and we go back in again. And if you're on good terms with your vet office, and again, with COVID and pandemic, some things are changing, but even if you can get outside the office, where a lot of times I'm finding most veterinary practices, even with COVID, are going, hey, like between 12 and 1, we have lunches or whatever. Why don't you come in at 12:15 when there's nobody going to be here, and you can do 5 or 10 minutes in the reception area with us? Okay, that's fine. I'll work around your schedule. If you can, that is highly recommended, because sending in your dog with another person is probably not going to help some of that right now. But when we get to that point after a few cookie visits, then yeah, that is something we could do. So this sometimes can mean just doing it outside the vet office in that area so that you're changing, again, that emotional state. So have fun, teach some of those basic cues in the first, few days to weeks that you're doing this. With, in addition, the staff kind of involvement, I can only, stress enough, like I don't have the staff hand treats to my dog. I have them toss treats at my dog, so that it's raining from the sky or it's being tossed at them. There's no requirement of going to say hi. There's no requirement of going up to that person right now. That can come later with go say hi's and when we do more cooperative care husbandry stuff. But right now, cookie visits are just changing the emotional state, making it so it's happy stuff, and there's no major requirements involved. So kind of going back to husbandry, we teach those cues like place and settle, flat and stand. Those are more, obedience type cues where we're teaching that. But now I want to also work with husbandry type stuff. So husbandry at home is what I consider it and I call it. And husbandry at home is simply being able to do everything that the vet might do or the vet tech might do, but training your dog to do it at home. So if we've already taught like a good stand, well then can we bring out something like a licky mat? You'll see one of the videos I posted was a licky mat when a young puppy who was having some major issues with her first exam, and then for the second one I happened to be able to go with, and I'm like, let me get the licky mat. We've been working on this dog. She actually came to me for Lodge and Learn for boarding and training, and I worked with her daily on just even being able to pick her up without her snapping and touching her without her snapping. She was a Cane Corso puppy who was kind of really body sensitive and reactive, and she was only, I think, 8 or 9 weeks of age in that video that you see, where 2 weeks prior she had been snapping and bitey and things like that. So what a licky mat though can help focus them on something. So cream cheese, peanut butter on a licky mat, something that they like in your home environment where it's a little bit more low key, right? They like that environment more. And you start to go, hey, here's your licky mat of stuff. I'm going to just start scritching you down your back. I'm going to start lifting your skin like someone would do for an exam, a vaccine. And usually how I'm doing it, it's very brief. So I'm like, scritch, 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 and they're licking. Yes, there you go. I'll pull the licky mat away, and then I'll put the licky mat back, and then I'll like do little skin tugs where I'll just gently lift the skin, gently lift the skin, gently lift the skin, kind of like I'm doing a vaccine. If I gently lift the skin and they're moving their head or worried, we stop, I'll get something higher value, and kind of go back to helping them come down so they're not worried about it. But a lot of times if you get something super high value, mix in some chicken with that cream cheese, smush it in that licky mat, freeze it, that they're really looking at it. They're really like, whoa, I really got to get this stuff out. You'll be lifting their skin and they won't even care. And like, well, here, I'm pretending to do a vaccine. Once, twice, maybe a third time. That's it. We're done for a while. Like, all right, good job. Excellent. Good job. Get that licky mat. Then I'll pull the licky mat away. It might not be done with. I'll refill it, put it back in the freezer, and it'll come out again in a couple hours. So keep your sessions like super short. I don't have a magic wand or a miracle number. I watch the dog in front of me a little bit and kind of train personally. But what I like to do is I like to put that licky mat down, just have it for a few seconds, do 1 or 2 repetitions, make it successful, and then we're done. How many vaccines does your dog actually need? How many times do they actually have to tolerate skin tugging? How many times do they actually have to tolerate a blood draw? Usually only once, twice, maybe a third time, depending on it. So teach them that once, twice, third time, they're done. It was super awesome. They get extra stuff. And when I pull the licky mat away, a lot of times I'll be playing. I'll bring out my flirt pole. I'll bring out my tug toy. We're going to play in the office. I actually have plenty of videos too. I have an entire fear-free list that I've done, over the years. And I have other videos of I'll play with the dogs in the office. So after they get their vaccines, I'm going to hand that tug rope to the doctor, and the doctor will play while we finish up talking about the exam. If that's able to be done with the dog. So some of those things, try to think about doing that at home right away and be able to set them up for exactly what the vet's going to do. And so a lot of times with the mock exam, again, then in half an hour, a couple hours, bring the licky mat back out, get them focused, squish some fresh chicken on there, put some extra fresh cheese so it's really easy to get, doesn't have to be defrosted by their tongue. And then I'll actually go ahead and start picking up their feet. Hey, I got to look at your back foot. I got to look at your front foot. If feet are an issue for your dog, we have to backtrack and do a little bit more desensitization. But usually, again, if we can get them focused, we can lift one foot. Yes, put it back down. Let them finish eating. All right, go back over. They're still eating. Pick up another foot. Put it back down. Yes, there we go. Keep eating. Hey, look, I got all 4 feet done. Boom. Yes, you're done. Keep eating. Here's some extra fresh chicken, fresh cheese, and then go ahead and we'll play with them again. So the licky mat comes away, toy comes out, boom, that session's done. So I do things in little increments. We have to eventually do an ear exam. We have to look at their eyes with a little ophthalmoscope. So how do I do those things? Same kind of way, where I have the licky mat or I have my treats, but I'll usually just teach them how to do a chin rest, where they can do a chin rest on my hand or on a different item, or I'll simply be able to hold their muzzle. So this is kind of where I just kind of go here and make a circle with your hands. Hope this looks okay on camera. It's on selfie mode, but I have comments kind of moving. But make a little circle with your hand and teach them hey, there's a treat on this side, or be able to have the licky mat here so that I put my hands in front of it. They shove their nose through. They're getting the licky mat. Yes, I'll give them an extra treat, but teach them how to put their nose in something, because then I can actually hold their muzzle and then I can lift up their eyelid. I can lift up their eyelid. How I do that again is I want choice. I want them to be able to do that, but I want them to also know that if they hold still while they do that, and I might do something weird like lift a little bit of an eyelid or lift a lip, that if they hold still, yes, they get paid and they get that licky mat still. So, and then again, we do it once, twice, couple times, that's it. Boom, we're done. Let's go play for a second. So these are very short things that you can do when you break down what the vet actually does. The vet has to probably touch your dog for all of 1.5 to 2 minutes. That's it. Why do exams take 45 minutes to an hour sometimes? Sometimes because we can't touch the animal, or sometimes because we are trying to work with them and helping them. If you teach your dog how to hold still for just 2 minutes, eventually, right? Not right now, but eventually, all of these dogs can just go plant, stand. Weird stuff's going to happen, but I know I'm going to get my tennis ball and I'm going to get a huge amount of rewards. Treats are going to rain from the sky. All of this is going to be worth it. And then they stand for 2 minutes and they're done. If you can teach them how to just do that and be done, then it changes everything that they see it as. They don't see it as, oh my gosh, I got to fight every step of the way. And we have to take our time to be okay, I really don't want to make this bad, but I really got to look at their teeth. Okay, well, here, put your nose in here. I can hold their muzzle. I can lift their lips. I can pull back their cheek. Yes, here's your treat. Good job. Put your nose in again. Lift your lips. Lift your back cheek. Kind of open your mouth. Yes, here's your treat again. Other side. Put your nose in here. Lift your lips. Open your cheek. Oh, I can see your teeth. Yes, here you go. Boom, let's play. So little steps, breaking it down into these little steps, think about what your vet has to do, or ask your vet, what do you do during exam? So that you can actually make this outline so that you can break it down. So husbandry at home starts literally at home. Now, as you get better about, hey, your dog's shoving his nose in, and now we're looking in the ears, we're lifting the eye, we're lifting the lips, yes, you get paid. So we add things as we go. We can make it longer and longer, but if you make it longer and longer, don't always make it harder. We have a tendency of wanting to then do the whole 2-minute exam. Well, make it longer, but then make it easier. I cannot stress that enough. I made it a little harder, so I lifted your eye, looked in your ear, lifted your lip on this side, yes, and pay. Okay, but now I'm going to go through, I'm going to do all this. I'm going to make it a little harder by maybe doing some skin tugs, or maybe lift your paw, yes, and pay. And then I'm going to make it where I just lift your lip, yes, and pay, and you're done and we'll play. So you see how I can make it a little bit longer, but then I make it really short, super easy so that the dog's I know it's going to be a thermometer next. It's going to be really hard. Nope, it's not. It might get easier. If you keep them, we want to be consistent enough to teach them what is expected, but we want to be variable enough that they just learn how to tolerate everything, because something good's going to happen, but they never know how long it's going to be in between. So what we call variable, right? Variable reinforcement eventually is what we want. So we want to be consistent about teaching them and helping them, but then we want to be varying it a little bit so it's not always harder for them. It gets easy. And if it gets easy, they go, oh, phew, okay, that wasn't so bad. And we can end it on that wasn't so bad versus, oh my gosh, that was horrible. And usually at a vet office, most of the time, that's why we're trying to change it into cooperative care. Usually it ends on bad things. And then they learn the next time, just protest as fast as possible because this is going to be bad. No, just keep teaching them it's all good. So all of these things that your vet does, lifting paws, lifting tails, they're, Dobermans, I have Dobermans with tails and I have Dobermans without tails. Roddy, same thing. Teach them how to be comfortable. Like if you scritch down their back and then you lift their nubbin, yes and pay. Scritch down their back, lift their nubbin, yes and pay it. That means you have a licky mat in front of them, keep them occupied. Most dogs go, whoa, you're by my butt. And it's not human for us. It's not, it's normal for dogs, but not normal for humans to be by butts. I hope none of you do that. I'm a jokester, so please take that as humor. But being able to actually go by their tail, lift their tail, the tailed dogs, sometimes they'll tuck their tail and, maybe that's a very sensitive area. Teach them that, hey, just because the tail comes up doesn't mean a thermometer goes in. How often do you lift your dog's tails? How often do you lift your dog's paws? It's great if you lift your dog's paws for muddy areas and things like that. I do circle, I do spin, but then I also lift their paws so they become comfortable with me. I also teach, again, flat, where I can do all their paws all at once if I need to. So, that's where the flat and the stand can come into play, where we can maybe do stand for a lot of things, but then we do flat for some of the other things. And working with your vet to know what they're going to do and how they're going to do it can help you set up your dog. We don't want them going from flat to a stand to flat again. We want them being able to, all right, we'll start in a stand, listen to their heart. Great. Open, look in their ears, lift their lips, go in their eyes, whatever the vet normal routine is. And then, maybe that butt stuff, like the thermometer and the feet, can be, all right, we're going to teach you how to flat. And we can do in a flat then, where we go down the sides, yes and pay, go down the sides, yes and pay, lift the tail on the side, yes and pay, lift the tail, and now there's a thermometer. Oh my gosh, that was rude, but here's a licky mat. Here's an extra couple pieces of chicken. And if you don't have a thermometer at home, I'd highly recommend one. The more comfortable, not that I want you to take your dog's temperature every day, but you should know what your dog's normal temperature is, because then if they are running a fever, heaven forbid they get sick, or an infection that they run a fever, you'll know what their normal temperature is. And this is a great way to desensitize them to it, where it's just routinely. Sometimes my mom is very weird and routinely makes me lay down, puts a bunch of chicken and a cream cheese and a Kong in front of my nose, lifts my tail, something really weird goes up my butt, a little bit. The thermometers don't have to go up very far. So some people think they have to shove them all the way in. That little metal tip, same thing with us. That little metal, that's it. That's all it has to do. But being able to show them that something really weird happens. And I recommend for pets the 7-second thermometers, not the minute thermometers. Some vets have minute thermometers. We can prove for that, but most of them have shorter ones now. We don't like to be there the whole time. So being able to actually just teach them these weird things. If you don't have a thermometer and you've never touched your dog and never lifted their tail and never done a thermometer, how can we expect the vet to be able to do it? They don't know it's normal. They don't know it's something that's expected of them. My goal, set up for success. Show them everything they need to know before they need to know it, so that you can be very successful with it. Thank you, Christine, for your feedback. Excellent. Great. Hopefully you're getting some tips out of it. And then Lori says, also know what normal gum color is for your dog. Excellent. Yes. When I said lifting your lips, you really should know what's normal. If you're getting in this habit of lifting their lips for just teaching them, you'll know what's normal and what's not. And you'll also know what's normal, say, after running them versus when they're just waking up in the morning. Because there are differences. There are still normal pink, but there are differences of like hyper pink because their blood pressure's up, their adrenaline's up, they've just got done running, versus when they're just waking up and it's probably going to be a kind of a normal lighter pink color versus a deeper red color. You never want white, you never want yellow, and you do want to watch some of those pink colors to know what's normal and what's not. But excellent. Yep, Lori, excellent suggestion there. And kind of knowing, with your hands on your dog, as we're doing these husbandry at home things, especially with longer coated dogs. I work with groomers a lot who work with owners who just can't brush their dogs or need sedation to brush their dogs. By keeping your hands on your dog, you'll find mats, you'll find burrs, you'll find things that shouldn't be there. There was actually some moldy cheese in a collie at one point when we were working on brushing. There was like moldy cheese that had gotten pushed into the fur of the collie. So it was creating this smell and this odor that we just found it and shaved it off and started from scratch. So, again, controversy on shaving or not, but this was a problem area and this dog needed this out of its fur right away. So, accepted the handling, shaved it out. So sometimes you'll find things that shouldn't be there. And I say that jokingly, but it's also true. If you don't put your hands on your dog, you really should. We should make it really fun so that they know what to expect. I've worked countless times with vets who the vet or the technician of the clinic doesn't work with the dog at all, doesn't touch the dog, but because I've worked with the dog, with the owner, they'll let me do everything. So even if you're working with somebody or you're able to do it, most vets, not all, because of liability, and there are different things, and obviously different countries have different rules too, but most vets that I've worked with or know, if you can do everything safely, like lift their lips, look in their ears, etc., and you've potentially basket muzzle trained, which we'll talk about in just a second, then they'll let you do it so that they don't have to take your dog out of the room. They'll be like, can you show me his teeth? Can you show me the back of his teeth? Can you take a Kleenex and wipe out his ear for me so I can kind of see, is there debris? So, especially getting your dog used to things like cleaning out their ears with a Kleenex, lifting their lips, again, maybe starting to brush their teeth, lifting their tail, brushing them, grooming them, getting your hands on them. These are all husbandry at home techniques that can be used for cooperative care at the vet. Cooperative care means literally being able to be cooperative with things. And so I don't want you to think it's a magic fix. Your dog will just walk into the vet and be fine, but you're setting them up for most likely being more fine with things happening to them because they're used to it and they can expect it. I'm sorry, just need a quick drink here. And so, excuse me, it's not COVID. I'm a jokester, sorry. And I'm talking to you like you're in the same room, so hopefully that helps. But being able to also, so we talked briefly about basket muzzle training, because in the case I was talking about earlier, the Rottie that I worked with, so after several years, I went to the vet office, we started cookie visits, we started teaching some of the basic impulses. We started doing a lot of the handling, even the nail trims. Another thing that we also did was taught her to be basket muzzle trained, because they always quote unquote, always had to muzzle her. And it was in her file that she would not be touched without a muzzle for safety reasons. And legitimately so. She's had some major issues in the past. So we basket muzzle trained her and got her to the point where we could feed treats and food through it. So basket muzzle training. Again, not going to go into the finer details of how to do it, but I recommend teaching your dog how to just shove their nose. Again, if you're working with them, just being able to hold them, teach them how to shove their nose into a basket muzzle. Not a regular muzzle. Those can be used if we need to switch it. Like say if we do need to sedate your dog, if I need to put a basket muzzle on and then sedate your dog, I need to switch it to a regular muzzle for something that might hurt them, even under anesthesia. If we twitch a nerve or something, sometimes we can always do that later, but not a regular muzzle, basket muzzle train only. There's Baskerville, there's Bumas, there's Jafco, there's a lot of them that we can talk about, or, if you have questions, you can ask, and it's not a big deal. Excuse me. But definitely work on basket muzzle training them to help them learn how to shove their nose into a muzzle and tolerate it. And you don't just put it on them and leave it on them. You actually want to desensitize and counter condition them to it. So I have a lot of videos myself. A lot of people have a lot of videos out there on how to do this successfully, but I definitely recommend doing that at home, kind of what we talk about husbandry at home. Teach them how to wear a muzzle. And then again, those plastic cone collars, because if heaven forbid your dog ever has to wear them, but make it fun. I've actually had some owners and seen some owners do where they've done the Death Star. They've actually decorated the Elizabethan cone collar with like the Death Star, or they made, there's some memes going around that there's a golden retriever that has like a margarita on him. Not to say you have to do that to your dog, but like teach them how to shove their nose into this cone collar. You can decorate it all you want, but shove their head into this cone collar. And they get fed treats and then it comes off, and they get fed treats and it comes off, and then they get fed treats and they have to walk 2 steps and it comes off, and they have to sit with it on and it gets come off. It doesn't have to even be on their collar. They just have to be able to shove their head into it and be comfortable with it. And it's just like wearing a collar, or it's just like if we are desensitizing to anything else, like a muzzle. If you put it on your face and you wear it, it's really cool. It gets rewarding. Just tolerate it and think it's cool, and it gets rewarding. So then suddenly they see it come out and they're like, oh, I know this game. And they might have been injured. Again, heaven forbid, but if they're injured or something else happens, they're not going to see the cone as horrible and paw at it and rub their face and hurt themselves more. They're going to see the cone collar as more of a game that they used to play, and something that's not as bad. So desensitizing to some of those things that may be needed. I'm all about prevention and being proactive and setting up for success. I'd rather my dog see every picture that might potentially ever happen, make it fun, make it rewarding, than get into a situation where they're like, not going to happen, and I need it. If I need them to do something, I want the foundation there where they think they're open to it. And a lot of these games actually do make them open to more weird things down the road. So keeping them open to these situations helps them become more confident and just be able to be more cooperative down the road too. So basket muzzle training, Elizabethan collar training. The other thing that you should talk about, so I've kind of talked about some of these dogs that can be modified without, but some dogs, like this Rottie as well, we talked about PVP, so pre-visit pharmaceuticals. You definitely want to talk to your vet about those. If your dog is really aggressive, really reactive, really anxious, like some of these dogs just go in, they're so over threshold, they can't play, they can't eat, they either shut down or they explode. And that's not ever a good place to be, but especially when you need something done, or if you ever need something done, it's not going to be a good place to be. If I can't place a catheter in your dog because I can't touch your dog, I can't save his life. And that's simply put, as an emergency critical care technician, it is simply truth. So I want your dog to be so comfortable that they walk in, even if they're kind of in pain, and they can accept a basket muzzle, they can accept an Elizabethan collar, something that I can help them, right away we can get what we need to get done, what we need to get done. So again, all this stuff leading up to what if something happens, or what if I need you to do that. But PVPs, pre-visit pharmaceuticals, can actually help you in the meantime, even with cookie visits if you need to, by giving them some medication to take the edge off. It is not a full sedation. They are not knocked out. It is simply something to alleviate anxiety and help with the mental status of the dog so that they can emotionally come down and actually learn what we expect of them. So they are more open to learning. If they're reacting and over threshold, they're not learning ever. Like, it's not really possible for them to truly learn in that situation. So getting them below threshold, helping them out, those medications are there for a reason. And people, like some people are like, I don't want to ever use that. I don't ever want to use it either, but I will, because I also believe that coming down and not being anxious and not being aggressive and not being reactive is way more productive for short term, so that I can help you behavior modify, teach you what you need to know, and then I don't need them again. This Rottie used to always have to be sedated. And when we started doing cookie visits, we basket muzzle trained, we got her to the point where she would walk in. I was her technician. So instead of humane euthanasia, which was what was recommended by this vet, they contacted me, we modified her behavior, and she unfortunately did pass away last year, but at the ripe old age of 12. So we're talking a 4-year-old dog for 8 years was absolutely fine then, moving forward at the vet office. Usually I was her technician annually to help out with that, but we got to do blood draws, we got to do exams, and she didn't need to be sedated. I think she needed to be sedated for x-rays at one point because she was painful and hurt herself, but we did that by doing a flat where she accepted that. So those are some things that when I talk about, like even in the videos that I post, the end goal of things for me is to be able to manage, even if it's with a basket muzzle or a collar or PVPs or sedation if we need it. That's what we need to do in that moment. But let's see if we can't do an end goal of being able to have all of this come into play, where then this dog could walk in and there was some anxiety. I'm not going to say she was perfect, but she would allow, with chicken through the muzzle, she would allow a vet to touch her, to listen to her. She actually would go down and lay flat and control herself. And for that sedation, for that x-ray, the vet brought in 2 extra people just in case. I said, just have them stand in the corner. I'm going to have her in a flat. I have her head. I'm a licensed technician. I won't let her bite you. She's got her basket muzzle on. The vet approached and actually did inject her in her thigh muscle. She didn't move at all. She just controlled herself. I think she did growl, because this was many years ago, but I think she went, "Rrr." And that was it though. Like, "Rrr." Like, I didn't like that. And that was it. But she maintained herself in a flat. And because she was taught that flat, if she just tolerated some weird stuff for a split second, she then, as soon as the vet backed away, it took a couple extra seconds because he kind of poked her fast. He was nervous, but poked her, backed away. I was like, yes, she popped up. She came at me in a good way. She came at me butt wiggling, slurping. I gave her chicken. My face was right next to her face, and we played. And we played for about 5 minutes because then the medication started to take place. And this was, again, when she was painful. So this is a dog who needed x-rays for a painful situation, but maintained her flat with her basket muzzle on, and then was like fine. And that was a good milestone for us and the owners to see and the vets to see, because this dog, again, was kind of on a block for something else, and had they not sought me out, and had I not worked with them, might have actually not had 8.5 more years of life. So I'm very, very, very aware, and I'm very proud to say that I worked with a lot of vets on cooperative care programs, because getting that education out there and helping your dog, these owners put all of their effort into helping this dog. That is really the only way that this program's successful, is that if owners are on board. And so being able to really set your dog up for success, teaching them all these things, can put it into play at the vet office. Other examples are the dogs that are super reactive and barky. So this dog just didn't want to be touched. I've worked with dogs that are super reactive and barky. They're very just like, no, 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 stay away, stay away, stay away. And then they don't want to be touched. Same kind of thing where maybe we talk about PVPs to help bring them down below a little bit. We work on the husbandry at home. We work on cookie visits in between, lots of them, frequent enough that we can, as frequent enough as we can. But then we also teach them what is expected. And then suddenly they're actually like going in going, okay, I may not like this, excuse me, but I'll tolerate this. And ultimately, to me, that's what it's about, is that having that actual visit where they tolerate things for 2 to 3 minutes, because in all reality, I've worked in veterinary medicine of my 21 years in kind of behavior and puppy stuff, 17 of those years, 16, 17 of those years, and general practice and emergency medicine. I mean, I have never seen an exam when a dog just is like fine with it. You know, it's like, okay, let me listen. All right, let me listen. Check your eyes, check your ears, check your teeth. Oops, I'm tartar. All right, we're going to work on that. Go down the legs, go down the body conditions, great. Thermometer if we need to. Check out other things. Okay, great, we're done. All right, here we need to do some vaccines. Okay, we need to do a blood draw. So the blood draw itself probably takes the most of time for the most part if they are taking your dog away from you especially. But less than 2 minutes typically is a kind of a very much a full exam. If we have to listen longer, 3 to 5 minutes. I'm not going to shortchange some vets who do take longer. That's fine. But if the dog's not tolerating it, if we teach them to tolerate 2 to 3 minutes, usually we can get done almost everything we need to do in an exam. And a blood draw, as I hope you see in the video, if you do watch the video that I posted, that also doesn't have to take long. If the dog's cooperative, done in 30 seconds. Like, seriously. A skill of technician or a skill of doctor comes into play. I'm just that good. I'm going to toot my own horn on that one. But being able to get the vein right away, not have it be poking around and painful, because Lord knows if I get poked around and painful with a nurse taking my blood, I get a little agitated too. I'm very much that person. But I just look away because I can control myself. Dogs do the opposite sometimes. So just teaching them to be like, okay, you can hold still. It's going to be a little uncomfortable for a split second, couple of seconds. You can control yourself here, if you can eat. But hopefully that video will show you the end goal of what it can be, because it does not have to take long. And if your dog maintains control, most vets are becoming more comfortable about doing things in the room. Some vets are not. And if that means you teach your dog to go away on a cookie visit and come back on a cookie visit, and go away on a cookie visit and come back on a cookie visit, so that after the 15th cookie visit doing that, they do go ahead and do a blood draw, well, you've set them up for success in a blood draw, and then they can go away pretty successfully. So now we put it together. And so husbandry at home, also kind of what I'm leading into with that, is doing blood draws. Now, do you have to draw blood? No, but you have to mock it. So that means if they're, talk to your vet. Do they normally do a jugular vein? Most do. If we can access a jugular, it's a lot faster than if we do a leg, to be honest. If we can't touch your dog, I'd rather do a rear leg. It's the furthest away from that head that comes around. If the dog's muzzled, that's great, but it's the furthest away from that head. And most dogs will tolerate a back leg draw pretty well. So, but that means that we have to teach a good flat. We have to actually hold off that back leg. Weird things that happen. If you don't know what happens to your dog at the vet's office, or you haven't seen it because they've taken the dog away, ask for videos, research videos, talk to me. I'm happy to show you some of the videos that I've done. But we want to be able to set your dog up for whatever is going to be normal at the vet office, so that you can mock it at home. And after you mock it at home, all of these things I take on the road. So meaning I would take them into the car. I actually will do in the backseat of a car. I know it sounds really, really weird, but in emergency medicine, sometimes we have to place a catheter in the backseat of your car because we don't have time. I'm sorry. I've done it. It sucks, but it's a time thing. I can't transport your dog in and hopefully get them. So it depends on the building and everything else set up. But being a technician, I want to bring that to the table and say, this is why we practice in all these different environments. What if you're hiking? What if you need to apply a tourniquet to your dog and you've never actually taught them that there can be pressure on their leg? Again, heaven forbid anything like this happens. Knock on wood, doesn't happen. But what if that happens? What if you're out there and an emergency happens? You want to be able to touch get them in a muzzle, so that because they're painful, they might bite you. Pain is horrible. Like, people don't always tolerate pain either. Not that we bite. Sometimes we do, but not that we always do. And dogs are genetically programmed to do that. So teach them to be basket muzzle trained. Bring that with, so that you can put your shirt around their muzzle as a basket, or apply a tourniquet if you have to. What if they lacerate their paw pad and you've got to put them in a sock? All of these weird things that might happen, we hope not, but they might. That's going to have to happen. So I take all these husbandry at home things where I'll extend their front leg like a blood draw and I'll roll their vessel over. Like just pretend, roll their vessel. All right. And I'm going to poke around with my finger. Yes. And they get a treat. We're done. Go play. All right, an hour later, I'm going to, have you in a flat or have you in a stand, pull you forward, might have you sit. Those are things we can introduce. Roll the vessel, poke around a little bit with my finger, apply pressure with my finger because that's going to be like a pressure of a needle. Yes, here you go. Roll. Yes, here you go. Let's go play. Rear legs. Someone has to hold off, someone has to draw. Jugulars, the head has to go up. So a lot of times we'll have them sit, but we've got to extend their head up. They've got to look to the ceiling. So I'll do it in front of them. Hey, put your nose here, look to the ceiling. Put your nose here, let's look to the ceiling. Yes, because this is going to be the picture of the technician is them under their chin. Well, then I'll go behind them. If they sit between my legs like a tuck, some other things that we can teach. But if they sit between my legs, great, let's sit. Now I'm going to just go here, put your nose through this side, so that, hey, they shove their nose in. Let's look to the ceiling. Let's look to the ceiling. Yes. I've done this so much on aggressive dogs of just teaching them just to look up that I actually, I don't know if I have a video of it. I know I had a picture of it, but this 240-pound Mastiff that I worked with that could not be touched by 4 different veterinarians came to us because he's like, if I can't get him vaccinated, I can't keep him. Okay, fair enough. Came to us and said, Julie's the person you talk to. Came in the room. Dog was outwardly aggressive. I'm like, okay, let's take him home. Let's do a couple cookie visits. We did that and came back. And the next time he came back, he had worked on the basket muzzles. The dog was muzzled. I went in the room and I said, all I want you to do is I want you to start lifting his head. The owner went to lift his head and the dog flipped around and was like, no, you can't do that. Okay, that's where we're going to start. These dogs who don't see these pictures, it seems weird. They look up. Why wouldn't they let us have them look up? Because we've never done it. It's a control thing. We have to show, hey, look, we got to look up at the sky. And control just meaning I have to control their muzzle. Nothing psychological about that. Literally just go, hey, let's look up. And they're like, no, I don't know. What are you making me look up for? Well, teach them. Put your nose in. Put your nose in. Yes. Put your nose in. Yes. And then, hey, let's just look up at the ceiling. Yes. As soon as they start to look up at the ceiling and realize, oh, that's not so bad, we increase duration, we increase distractions, and then we have where they can look up for 30 seconds and I can go ahead and start poking around at their neck, or I can go ahead and get that blood draw again within 30 seconds. A lot of times, though, if they're doing that, I'm not going to do a jugular. I'm going to do a rear leg or a front leg or etc. But being able to actually just teach them these weird pictures means that they're going to be set up later on if you need to have access. Maybe they have a hot spot we need to shave. Again, heaven forbid, but, especially drooly breeds like this Mastiff, he was, prone to hot spots. So, maybe we have to clip and clean or do something like that. You never know. And because we don't know, try to teach them as many handling and husbandry things as possible. Got to teach that hands target to my goal. Yeah, absolutely. Because just mocking it and saying, hey, this is a muzzle can help them see a different picture. So, holding off legs, doing that husbandry at home, then we take it on the road. So back to the car, go in the car, teach them to flat in the car. Yes. And pay and play, go to the park, literally we're going to the park or we're going to go for a walk. Well, let's jump in the car. Let's do a quick flat and breathe. Yes. All right. Let's go on our walk. Great. Let's, on the way back in the car, let's do a stand and let me just put your nose in here, lift up your head. Yes. All right. Let's go back in the house. It seems weird, but just make it part of your everyday thing of just doing 1 or 2 little things. Husbandry becomes super easy, super fast, and builds up all these repetitions for being able to handle the dog in different environments under different distractions. And that way, again, they can kind of learn that it's not as big of a deal as they think it is. And then when they go to the vet office, because we've done emotional changing with cookie visits, we've done some of this prep work, they're going to be able to have an exam in 2 minutes and not actually stress out about it too much. And also on the road, so take it to grandma's house, practice there, play in between, but do mini sessions in between, I say grandma's house, but whatever house they like, friends' houses. If they have a favorite doggy play date, before you go into the doggy play date, see if they'll just put their nose in for a muzzle and see if you can do a little head exam. Great. All right, go play. All of those things are rewards for the dog, and yet you're teaching them under these different distractions that it just happens. This is just routine. It is routine for me to lift your lips and go bleh with your lips and make you go ah. It's routine for me to pick up your paw and just check for a little burr. It's routine for me to lift your tail. Before you go say hi to your friend, I'm going to go scritch, 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 lift your tail. Yes, go play. And then they're like, this is so weird. These humans are so weird, but whatever. That's the response I want. So cooperative care to me is, again, making sure this is just so every day that they're just cooperating. They're just like, all right, whatever. And it's no big deal. Because then when you get to the vet office, all that prep work comes into play. And, again, going back to like the pre-visit pharmaceuticals, if you have a super reactive dog, bring them below by helping them chemically with those medicines so that then they're able to learn. And if they're able to learn, now we can get everything moving forward. Any questions? I actually talked a little bit longer than I thought I did. Any particular questions right now or anything I didn't touch base with? Because otherwise then I'll probably wrap it up. Because we talked about the main things I wanted to talk about. But does anybody have any specific questions about their particular dog who's still in the talk with me? I'll just wait for a couple seconds here just in case there's a little bit of a lag, it looks like. Okay. So, and anything that, comes up, feel free to message me. But so we do our husbandry at home. We do our cookie visits at the vet office. We make things fun. We change the emotional state. We're working on some of our basic cues. The place and the settle kind of come back into play for me because I also, after the visit, I don't ever want to end like where they're stressing out, the exam was done, and then we race out to the car. And we can if we have to. I'm not going to ever say you don't ever do it because we can if we have to, but it's situational. And what I really want to teach them to do though is that's why I bring them back. So like the exam's done, the blood work's done, and they're saying, okay, you can go back out and get checked out or whatever. Okay, well, I'm gonna probably take 30 seconds to a minute and just put the towel down and say, place, good dog, yes, here's a licky mat, here's a couple, a handful, a jackpot comes down raining from the sky, so that they kind of end a little bit more on just a little bit calmer or more, less like go attitude, where they're just going, hey, we're just gonna go ahead and relax for 30 seconds, and then we'll go check out. Then I can go check out so that they're not sitting in the reception area wondering what is next. I'll be, hey, I'm gonna run them to the car and I'll be back in to pay. So those are some things that I want you to also consider is not only the pre, and the during, but also then right afterwards. How are you going to set up right afterwards to continue to make your visit the most successful as possible? So those are the things that I definitely want you to consider too with going back to doing a place or going back to even just doing a stand. Good job. Yes. And then they get the jackpot. It can be as simple as that. You do the stand, they get paid, jackpot, and all right, yeah, let's go to the car. We'll be right back. I'll come back to pay in just a minute. I'm going to put them in the car. So those are some things that we want to do as well. Looks like, okay, there's, so Christy, what meds are given to change them so they can learn? Christy, that's a great question. That is definitely a question for your vet. It is extremely history reliant, unfortunately. I'm not a vet. I can't prescribe. Typically when I've talked to vets on things, there is a combination of medication, but there are some over-the-counter things that might be effective as well. Some over-the-counter things are sometimes Composure Pro if you have low-level anxiety or even like low-level reactivity and aggression. Soliquin can be an aid for anxiety. That's over-the-counter. It's more dog stuff. I'm an Amazon person. You can find it there. But again, those are all more questions for pre-visit pharmaceuticals are usually more prescription-based drugs. And so those are very history dependent on your dog. So I can't really tell you because usually when the vets, I do get consults with vets a lot because in behavior, veterinarians, most veterinarians only have 4 to 5 hours of backing. So they do rely a little bit more on people who specialize in behavior. And so, I mean, I will jokingly say, but because I'm a licensed tech and I've worked with so many, like they'll go, hey, do you think these medications might work? Or, what do you think based on your assessment, right? Because they're maybe not assessing as much as I do. So working with your veterinarian on that and getting a full assessment done and looking at the history is definitely where the PVPs are going to come into play because they're all prescription. And they're the best ones to talk to on like what might be best for that. I will say, and this is where I put my foot down, is I do not ACE anything. ACE promazine, not in my repertoire or ever recommended. It is a product purely of sedation and it doesn't take away any of the mental aspect. So basically now they can't move or it's hard for them to move and they are still going, oh my God, this sucks. And so I never want to do ACE promazine. So if your vet is still doing ACE promazine, that is where I might put my foot down and say, hey, did you realize some of the new studies show that ACE promazine is not as effective? Or, I've heard that maybe it's not going to be the most effective. What about, we can talk about other medications and things like that. But most veterinarians do know that nowadays. Not all, because it's all about education, right? So if we don't know better, we can't do better. So, being able to definitely put my foot down and say no acepromazine, that is not something I ever use for dogs for when I'm doing any of this as a pre-visit pharmaceutical. It might be used in anesthesia or sedation, but not actually as this, and it's always used in conjunction with something else that takes away the mental aspect. So definitely good question. A little bit more personalization with your pets and their histories. Lori, just want to say you were awesome and I miss you. I miss you too, Lori. You were just so far away and I do miss you. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. I love getting positively reinforced. Pat on the back, right? I love that. And then, you're late, Zena. It's okay. No problem. This should be recorded. I am trying to save the recording, so no problem, Zena. You can actually rewatch it if you want, okay? And if you have questions, just let me know. And then Chris, hi. Hi, Chris. Thanks again for joining. Let me know if you have questions, and we can kind of go from there, too. But hopefully, I think I got all the questions in there. If I missed anybody's question, I'll try to scroll through and contact you, or feel free to contact me again. Just as a quick little refresher and review, try to make this all positive and try to change. Not only, it's not about the obedience aspect. Sometimes we focus on we have to teach them to sit and stay. No, we don't. We have to teach them to tolerate. And part of teaching to tolerate is actually something that you want to teach the emotional change to. So what we learn with pleasure, we rarely forget. And it's just something where I want them walking into a vet office the same way they walk into a dog park. This is going to be the coolest thing ever. It's going to be kind of weird. Some weird things might happen. And especially at a dog park, how many dogs stick their noses up another dog's butt, so again, thermometer, they can learn to tolerate that. So it's kind of where, and I jokingly say that, but we all know, most of us know it's true. But that's where I want them to be oh my gosh, hi, nice to meet you. Chicken rains from the sky. Hi, nice to meet you. Ooh, this might be a little weird. It might hurt a little bit. That vaccine might hit a nerve, but ouch, I can tolerate it. Do I get chicken for this? Yes, you do get chicken for that. And I use chicken, but string cheese, again, whatever the dog finds enjoyable, you do get something for that. You do get that cream cheese Kong. All of this good stuff that you don't get at home happens at the vet office, and it's really fun to go there. So all these cookie visits in between, you're doing your husbandry at home to set them up for success so that they know what to expect. Oh, my mom does this to me all the time. My mom lifts my tail all the time. So when she's in front and she's saying this is cool, okay. Or if you have that extremely reactive or aggressive dog, we use some of those PVPs. We get that basket muzzle training on board. We get even the Elizabethan cone collar, the plastic cone collars, or the big bubbles. They have those blown up ones now. Get them used to those things, because if I don't have a basket muzzle, to be honest, we sometimes use an Elizabethan cone collar, especially on the littler guys. Sometimes the littler guys are, I don't want to say impossible, but it's harder for them to get their nose in this little tiny muzzle if they really don't want to. So if you can't muzzle your dog, how are we expected to? So, and I say that as a technician, but I also say it openly, because I don't want to hurt your dog. I don't want to be shoving it on their face or pinning them down to shove it on their face. So teach them how to just shove their nose into something. But it can sometimes be a plastic cone collar, because if they can shove their head in a plastic cone collar really easy, that does give me safety to do just about everything else with the rest of the dog, or draw blood, or do what I need to do to sedate them, to help them, get done what we need to get done, but it's not as traumatic as trying to get a muzzle on. So think of basket muzzles and the plastic cone collars similarly, in that just teach them how to wear them and like them, that it's not a big deal. And then being able, again, not only to do your cookie visits, but train for your actual visit, where you're going through talk to your vet, be on board with your vet, tell them what you want, ask them what they want, know the exam routine so that you can help your dog, and then always end it where they're not just rushing out the door because that was horrible. We end it with, I'm going to stay in the room for 30 seconds to a minute and just do a couple of tricks and if stand, scritch. Yes. End it on such a note that they're not thinking that was bad and I need to leave as fast as I can. They're thinking, well, that was kind of weird and I tolerated it and cool things happened, but now this extra 30 seconds to a minute, they're not thinking of what just happened. Dogs live in the now. They're not really thinking 2 minutes ago what happened. They're thinking, oh, okay, well then here's some more chicken. Here's the licky mat. Let's go to your bed. Let's just stand. Here's some scritches. Yes. All right. Now let's go to the car. We'll go for a little mini walk. I'll be right back to pay. Most vets, if you've talked to them and are working with them, they're not just going to be like, oh my gosh, you're leaving. You just say, hey, I'm going to go put my dog in the car, take 2 minutes and I'll be right back in. And they're like, oh, okay, see you in a minute. Or I'll call from the car with the credit card, whatever needs to happen. So think about these visits and think them through so that you can set your dog up for success each step of the way. So hopefully this was informative for everybody. Lori says, click. I like that. Christine, can you share it with your clients? I don't know. I'm not the one recording it, so I'm not, it might be up for, I think, 2 or 3 weeks maybe, but I don't know. That's a great question. You can try. They probably have to join the group if they're going to watch it in the next couple of couple of weeks. But I would be fine with that. I don't know if I'm going to get copies of the recording, so, because it's alive, but the group itself, I think it's recorded for a couple of weeks. So yes, absolutely. If if they want to join the group and share, you can watch all of the talks that way, if you're joining the group. So I'd absolutely invite them in. We're here for information. All of us are donating our time, to help everybody else, because we do believe in fear-free and force-free. That's why we're here. So, again, hopefully it was informative for everybody. Let me know if you have questions. Feel free to friend me, like the Trekking Dog Trainer on Facebook, and I have a couple more talks. I have 4 more talks actually coming up. So scroll through and find them. They're usually in my descriptions as well. So hopefully we'll see you in the future. Everybody have a great rest of your day or evening, and we'll see you next time. Okay? Take care.